The 49ers OTAs have started, and the Golden State Warriors are back in the finals. Let's go.
That's
Niner Nation
right.
Nonsense starts now. Hello and welcome to Niner Nate's Nonsense. And it may not be a lot of Niner news, but we're here anyway talking about the Warriors. With me this week is Chris Polo from his YouTube channel, The Chris Polo Show. How you doing, man?
Doing great, man. Thanks for having me on here.
I appreciate it. I wanted to talk Warriors, and, I know it's called Niner Nate's Nonsense, but, we'll talk a little bit about the 49ers, but there's not a whole lot to really talk about with the 49ers. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't remember it being this dead around the 49ers in a very long time.
Well, I mean, it's dead, but it's also we were juicing the hell out of the whole Jimmy stuff for like 4 weeks straight, and I think we kind of gave ourselves fatigue. And then the Debo stuff happened, and we were like, "Oh, we can talk about stuff again," and then nothing happened there. So now we just gotta wait. We just gotta wait. We got the Kinlaw stuff, and that was it. And that died out.
Yeah, we had the Grant Cohen thing. I kind of stayed out of it. I was like, I'm not gonna make a podcast about Grant Cohen fighting
Neither
with
was I.
Javon Kinlaw. I'm not
Exactly.
in that. Let's say hi to some people. What's up, Joey Arenado? How you doing, man? Let's just talk Niners just a little bit, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the Warriors. So if you're not a Warriors fan, this probably isn't the podcast for you for the next 2 weeks. We're going to spend a lot of time talking about what is probably going to be the NBA champions here in a couple weeks. I don't see a world where the Celtics win, but we'll break down all that stuff. And then next week, Chris, I'll probably see if you want to come back on again next week. We're going to try and bring on some Celtics fans and more Warriors fans, and we'll do more of a bigger breakdown 2 games into the finals, heading into Boston, what we feel about the team, how they've played so far, where we think this series is going, all that fun stuff. So we'll be back in next week with more Warriors content, but then we'll get back to the Niners. But let's talk a little bit about the 49ers. So, we juiced up this idea that Trey Lance should be the starting quarterback for so long. And here we are. We're living in a Trey Lance is the starting quarterback of the 49ers world, and a world where Kyle Shanahan has said Jimmy Garoppolo is getting traded. So what could be wrong in 49ers land, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then you got all the Debo stuff. And listen, I think all that other stuff is going to end up being resolved. For me, the only real question mark where I truly just don't know is Alex Mack. That's the one thing to me, because then, it's not too surprising if he retires, but who are they? What is their plan to replace him? They're not going to play a rookie. Kyle Shanahan's not going to do that. You're going to get a veteran. Is it JC Treader? Is it somebody else? Are you going to make a trade? I have no idea. And I mean, I was just watching Peter Lucas's show with Kevin. They were talking about, the defensive line. We have such a stacked defensive line. So I'm really excited for that. I'm really excited to see what Drake Jackson does on the opposite side of Nick Bosa. The safety position's pretty interesting. They have they don't have a surefire, okay, this guy is going to start. I think it's probably going to end up being Odom, because at this point, I feel like they would have brought Tart back by now if they were going to bring him back. But I want to see if Leon O'Neal actually makes the roster. That's something I really do want to see.
It's funny. I talked to a couple people over the last couple weeks on this show, the last 2 shows we did, about Leon O'Neal. And I just feel like maybe he's too slow to make this team. I just don't know if he fits what the 49ers do at safety. And what I mean by that is it's like what the Seahawks did. And so I don't know if you remember.
Well, you love them.
Honestly, it's outside of the 49ers. I know more about the Seahawks than almost anybody on Twitter. And so I bring them up a lot, but it's interesting because the 49ers run a similar defensive scheme to the Seahawks. And the reason they did is because Cam Chancellor and Earl Thomas were not only big and strong, but they're fast as shit as well. And so the 49ers had to have big, strong, fast. And Leon O'Neal is probably big, strong, maybe not strong, but strong, whatever. He's just not fast. And so I just don't think they can play him out there. If he makes the team, it'll be interesting to see what they do with him, just because, that guy dropped outside of the draft. You don't do that unless there's problems.
Yeah.
And then the thing with the center is interesting because I really feel like they have to know something, right? This guy can't be dilly-dallying around and being like, oh, I don't know, I might retire, I might not retire. I don't know. Kyle would be like, All right, dude. Tell us what the hell you want. Tell us what the hell's going on. Let's say hello to Amin the Dream, the 14-year-old phenom. What's up, dude? He might be 15 now. I haven't talked to him in a little while, so I'd feel bad if he's changed. But yeah, so it's kind of interesting. There are positions to talk about, but like, are you really going to spend an hour doing a podcast where you're like, hey, let's talk about the offensive line. Let's talk about this. It's
Can't
like, I'm
do it.
ready for, OTAs will end eventually. Garoppolo will get traded and then we'll have news again. But, right now I just don't think there's enough. We can talk about Trey Lance and his changed stance if you want. I mean, what do you think about some of those pictures that have come out from Trey Lance from OTAs?
I don't even think that much of it. To me, I just want to see the dude play. I just want to be able to see him in the preseason. I want to be able to see him on Sundays in the regular season. Like, to me, that week 3 matchup with Denver against Russell Wilson, even though it's not the Seahawks, but the fact that it's against Russell Wilson, like, that'd be such a statement win for Trey Lance as a Niners starting quarterback to go beat Russell Wilson. I just want to see him in the games. I want to see his chemistry with Brandon Ayuk for the course of a season, not like through 10 quarters of playing. I really want to see how that goes. I'm assuming Debo's going to be on the field. I want to see how that goes. I want to see how Kittle's utilized too. I think he could break out because his receiving production's kind of been criticized the last few years, but obviously when Jimmy Garoppolo's your quarterback, I don't really know what else to expect. So I think with Trey Lance being there, you can open the playbook a lot more. And because I think he's just, to me, the top 2 tight ends of the league, it's Kelsey and Kittle. And Kittle is just not getting the volume that he could be getting where, like, if he was in Kansas City, I think Kittle would be putting up ridiculous receiving numbers. It's just, I want to see Trey Lance kind of try to have that connection. Mina Kimes was talking about that the other day on TV, where she was saying, like, if Trey Lance turns into kind of like, because it's kind of similar to the Mahomes situation, if he can kind of have that connection with George Kittle, it's something that could be really scary when you have those other receivers. The one silver lining I will say, though, and I'm not at the OTA, so I don't fully know, but with Debo being gone, the silver lining is I feel like that probably means you're getting a lot more time, or he's getting a lot more time with Danny Gray. I feel like that is probably something that's really going to help him develop a little bit quicker. I really wonder what's going to happen with that receiver room, because after Debo and Brandon Ayuk, it's Juwan Jennings. They got Ray McLeod. They've got Danny Gray there. I just want to see who actually gets utilized. I don't want to see Mohamed Sanu ever put on red and gold again. I never want to see that.
You hate him.
Dude, it's going to happen, bro. I don't care. It's going to be like week freaking 9 or something, and someone's going to get hurt, and there's going to be someone really good available, and you're just going to see the notification on your phone that the Niners brought in Mohamed Sanu, and he's going to actually get playing time. I just know it's going to happen, but oh my gosh. I was at that Cardinals game. I was at that Cardinals game, and I remember it was like 3rd and 11, and Trey Lance he just throws a dime, and it's like 20 yards down the field. Mohamed Sanu drops, and I was like, this guy.
Mohamed Sanu's also, I mean, he had a career. He's not necessarily like a guy that should be on any team anymore. It's time to replace him.
Kyle loves him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why he's here, right? And so my thing is obviously I want to see it too. That's where I am at this point. That's why I want to talk about the Warriors, right now, just because it's a lot more interesting time to talk about, a team in the finals than it is to be like, oh, geez, what happened here? Oh, cool. Like no one's really in the building. Nobody can see what's happening. Yeah. We're just sitting here basically like, okay, well, I hope Trey looks good. I hope he's playing well, but like, we'll see here soon when, training camp and all that, the real stuff starts. That's when we'll really be able to break down the 49ers and really talk about, who this team's going to be and can they beat the Rams. But until then, let's talk about the pride of the Bay Area.
Exactly.
The Golden State Warriors are back in the NBA Finals. I mean, let's just talk a little bit about what happened to get here. The fact is, this was the most injured team in the regular season going in, towards the end. There was never, I think I saw a stat line that Steph, Clay, and Draymond never played a game or played only 2 games together total all season. Mm-hmm. And so I think anyone who's followed the Warriors and understands the way they play basketball kind of realize that this is who they are. They get through these, these stretches where they're injured and they, learn to use these young guys. I think that was one thing, Chris, we can talk about a lot is the last 2 years have been a really good experience for Jordan Poole, to be able to play in the NBA Finals. So, I mean, we got people in here highly favored, and then we got 49ers saying season 7. Get out of here.
No, not 7. They'll go home in 6. Don't worry about that.
Let's talk. I mean, let's just talk about, this core. Jordan Poole has been a huge part of this. He hasn't been huge in the playoffs, but he's a piece where at least teams have to think twice about leaving him open. And I think that helps Steph and Klay just play better basketball. And that's what we've seen in these first 3 games, these first 3, series of these playoffs.
Yeah. And with the whole year, yeah, it was 2 games. And the 2 games were Draymond coming back from the back injury and he was on minutes restriction. So it wasn't even like they're like starting together, going full minutes, full conditioning. That's why to me, I think, and this dude gets disrespected all the time, especially by Warrior fans. Put some damn respect on Steve Kerr's name. Dude, like coaching through this year, you don't have one of your 3 best players basically in every single game throughout an entire 82-game season, and you win 53 games. I die on the hill that if Draymond doesn't hurt his back, because January 9th, that's when Klay came back. They were 29-9. The Suns played one more game before that. They were 30-9. So they were basically tied for first. And when Draymond went out after that, he was gone for 30 games or so, like consecutively. They lost 17 games this year without Draymond Green. They went 19-17 in the games that he missed. If Draymond never gets hurt, this team wins 65 games. They're the first seed team. They were the top defense too. And people are like really surprised now, like, oh, they're a 3rd seed team. They ain't that good. It's not that they're like some regular 3 seed team. This is a 3 seed team that's disguised, and they're like really like they should have been the best record in the league. Like they were right up there with Phoenix, and Phoenix, like what I was getting at in my last podcast was when you look at the other teams right now in the playoffs, right? Or even you can go back to the last round, the last couple rounds. Like the Suns' top-end talent of Devin Booker and Chris Paul does not match up with the Warriors' top-end talent of Steph Curry, Draymond Green, Klay Thompson. And then, okay, well, they're both deep teams. But that top-end talent, along with a Jordan Poole and an Andrew Wiggins, you can't match up against that. Like at some point, the talent just does catch up to you, and especially that chemistry that core 3 has. And I look at the Celtics. To me, this matchup, some people might disagree with this, but I think the Celtics matchup kind of reminds me of the matchup against the OKC Thunder in 2016, just because, and only from this standpoint, is if you were to see back in 2016, the Thunder get off the bus, and if you see the Warriors get off the bus, and you know nothing about basketball or who those guys are, you're going to assume like, oh, that Thunder team's definitely going to win just by seeing the guys coming off the bus compared to the Warriors. And you look at the Celtics now, and you see like Jason Tatum, and you see Jaylen Brown, you see Al Horford and Marcus Smart. If you knew nothing about basketball, you didn't know who they were, you'd probably think like, oh, those guys are going to win. But at the end of the day, when we talk about, because people always say like, oh, but they're physically going to outmatch them. They're defensive monsters. The Warriors have gone up against that all the time. Every single year, there's a team where it's like, oh, they're physically going to outmatch them, and it just doesn't do anything. They always combat it. So I'm really excited to see the series. I think it is going to be Warriors in 6. I think people really need to understand that the way that the Warriors play, they don't play like iso ball where they just, like you see Jimmy Butler on the Heat. And granted, a lot of the supporting cast is gone, but they're not playing like the Warriors. They're not running around screens nonstop. They're not having like a facilitator like Draymond Green work everything around the court. Steph Curry is the most conditioned player in the entire league. He's going to be running around nonstop. It's just going to force your defense to react to things. And when you just keep having to react to things, you're going to make mistakes. I don't care how good of a defensive team you are, especially in those plays where Steph Curry comes to set a screen and Klay pops up to the 3-point line or something and Steph runs a back cut and there's miscommunications there, or sometimes Steph's a decoy. I don't care how good defensive players you have. That off-ball movement is what makes them so great. It's not what they do with the basketball. It's what they do without the basketball that makes them so great.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you talk about just the way that the Warriors played some of those other teams. We got a Niner in here saying, no way the Celtics aren't the Nuggets, Grizzlies, or Mavs. And maybe the Celtics aren't the Nuggets, Grizzlies, or Mavs. My thing with this team, and we were in a space earlier that started out as a Niner space, but became a Warrior space because that is Niners Twitter right now.
Yeah.
And I mentioned to you, I think I was talking to you and a couple other people, I think this series is going to be a lot like the Grizzlies series, where once Ja Morant went down, there wasn't like a dynamic guy who shot. They made it very ugly. And I think that the Celtics are going to make it ugly. But while I really think that Jason Tatum is a great basketball player, I think that the Celtics have better players than obviously the Nuggets, the Grizzlies, or the Mavs. I just think that we've kind of seen this story happen before where, other teams are spending so much time double teaming Steph Curry that they leave Andrew Wiggins wide open. And Andrew Wiggins is a defensive player who can also hit threes. Draymond, if he hits a three in a game, we win. It's just how it works, right?
Yeah.
Draymond will hit at least 1 3 in these games. Klay Thompson has gotten better throughout the playoffs. Like, how many guys are coming off of multiple leg injuries and playing in the playoffs, and you're continuing to see improvement? You saw improvement in the way he played defense. You saw improvement in the way he shot the ball. Yes, it wasn't, always pretty. There, he missed some shots that old Klay Thompson makes, but when the game was on the line, I felt that Klay Thompson looked more like the old Klay Thompson in those games. So when you get to the Celtics team, they're going to make it ugly. They're going to make Marcus Smart's going to make Steph Curry work. But the question that you have to ask yourself is, who do you want to let shoot? And if they don't want to let Steph Curry shoot, one of these other guys is going to find a way to get the ball in the hoop. They might even attack the paint. And if they attack the paint, then the Celtics are very vulnerable, because I don't think they can outscore the Warriors. I just don't see it.
Yeah, and the Grizzlies are one of the best rebounding teams in the league. They were out rebounding the Grizzlies. So, like, that's why I'm saying, like, they always overcome these things that people try to say, oh, well, and then, like, with this, like, Harrison Barnes, well, my thing to that would be this team is still just very deep. Even if Andrew Wiggins doesn't have the best series, it doesn't mean they're not going to win the series. Someone could easily step up. It could be Jordan Poole as a monster series. They're going to be, it sounds like, going to be getting Gary Payton back. It sounds like they might be getting Andre Iguodala back.
Wilt Chamberlain, and
yes.
Iguodala, which Iguodala is whatever, but Wilt is a huge deal. He hasn't played in a finals game in 60 years. Like, that's
exactly
crazy.
This is a revenge series. You're gonna get nasty Wilt in this series. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I saw Wilt close out the Suns. Okay, I saw it on Christmas Day.
Real quick, like, I know it was a podcast. I'm not crazy. He looks just like him, and you know the story. He had sex with like 2,000 women or something like that. Like, if someone isn't doing a DNA test after he wins the finals this year and just seeing if Wilt Chamberlain's grandma or Wilt Chamberlain's, like, I'm sorry, if Otto Porter Jr.'s grandma or mother doesn't have some sort of Wilt Chamberlain DNA in him, I would be blown away. The man looks literally just like him.
He looks just like Wilt Chamberlain and kind of like Lionel Richie. Those two.
I haven't thought about Lionel Richie. You're right on that one too.
But
he does look a little bit like Lionel Richie.
But with this series, like, another thing that's really an underrated factor that some people might not care about, the NBA Finals is a completely different stage. It mentally, you need to be prepared. And people try to act like, oh, well, okay, cool, I get it. Jason Tatum literally played a Game 7 against LeBron his rookie year. Like, they've been through playoff series nonstop. Those series are nothing compared to the finals. It's a completely different atmosphere. So I actually used to wear this jacket to every Warriors game I went to. I've been to hundreds of Warrior games in this Steve Kerr era. I was at all the NBA finals, and I'll tell you the difference between like Game 7 against the Thunder and Game 1 against Cleveland, sometime probably like June 2nd or something, whenever those games were. It's completely different. It's like double the atmosphere. You're in the room with the entire sporting world. They bring in like extra shit to light up the court. Like, you start walking around and you start seeing like people that you see on TV all the time. Like, I met Stephen A. Smith at Game 5 of 2017. His whole family sat next to me. I saw like Shaq and Kenny and the whole crew like right behind me. You'll go down like toward the court. You'll see like 30 different people. It's like, oh, I see you on NFL Network. Why are you here? But it's like Steve Mariucci. I saw Steve Mariucci with Tom Izzo. It's like, it's completely different atmosphere. And when it's your first time there, it's going to take a while for it to settle in. It might take like just the first quarter. But my point is, throughout the course of the series, the mental grind that is to win a championship, the Warriors are the most battle-tested team in this entire league at this point. I see them as like the Spurs of the 2010s, but a modern version of that, because you have a core of 3 guys and a coach who came from that same Popovich tree as well, in terms of, he played underneath him. He also played with Jordan. He played for Phil Jackson. And they share a lot of the same philosophies. I'm sure he does with Greg Popovich and the way he wants the team to play. And they are just so experienced together, and they have a deep roster around them. Whereas Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, They're going to a place in the jungle they've never been to before. And I know they're great, and I know that they are talented enough to win a championship, but you're going up against a team that knows this place too well. In fact, they had to mentally prepare to go up against LeBron James 4 years in a row. You can't get more battle tested than that.
That's true.
And at that point, like, nothing's going to shake this Warriors team. That's why you can see, like, game 1, for instance, against Memphis, right? A younger team, not as experienced. Draymond gets thrown out. They have a nice run to end the half. John Morant screaming at a rookie, "You can't guard me," or whatever. And the Warriors, who should be annihilated in that game, come back immediately, and all of a sudden they're like up 10. And then they end up winning that game, a game they should have never even won, because this team will not fold. Whereas the Celtics, multiple times, like, they lost a game to the Heat where Jimmy Butler didn't even play in the second half. And Steph Curry, he's not Jimmy Butler. He's a little different. Steph Curry getting 35 points might be more lethal than Jimmy Butler getting 45 points, just because the way Steph Curry scores is just demoralizing. It runs a score up on you. He can go on a 9-0 run himself in like 40 seconds or 30 seconds, and then you have to call timeout, and you just can't stop it.
I think that's the thing that's really underestimated about the Warriors. And obviously, like, we all know Steph Curry is, right? I think I said on Twitter after they went to the finals, I think he's the greatest barrier athlete in the history of the area. I think that I love Joe Montana, I love Jerry Rice, I love all those guys. Steph Curry's better. Yeah. And I think that people kind of forget how good he is until you really watch some of these, these games where if you don't understand exactly what's going on, it's hard. It's easy to miss. I think it was Kevin Durant today said something on Twitter about, Steph Curry was double teamed less than I was in those games. And if you look at the stats, it's not true. Steph Curry was the most double teamed guy in the entire playoffs that year. And that's what allowed Kevin Durant to continuously come out and win finals MVP and win and clutch those games. And so people are more afraid of Steph Curry than I think most of the NBA media, common fans of other teams really understand. Steph Curry is one of a kind. And I think that it's kind of shown throughout these playoffs this year how important he is, because I love Jordan Poole. Don't get me wrong. But Jordan Poole is still a ways away from being the Jordan Poole who replaced Steph Curry. And I think that we've seen, cool things with the young guys. Kuminga, Poole, and Mooney. Mooney, is that his name? What is it? Mooney?
Moses Moody.
I'm sorry, Moody. I don't know why I said Mooney. I think I was thinking of Darnell Mooney. We were talking about him earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, that's the future of the Warriors, right? But right now, these guys are so good that you can allow these, guys who've only been in the league, who are playing for the G League last year, to get big minutes in these huge playoff games because people are so afraid of Steph Curry. They leave these kids open. I mean, if you're double teaming Steph Curry, Klay Thompson or Jordan Poole is open if that death lineup is out there. And it's recently been Wiggins, and it's also been, what you mentioned, the Grizzlies, one of the best rebounding teams. Kevon Looney has been just a rebound monster about getting the ball back to these guys so they can make more shots. And I don't know, it really feels like, and maybe I'm crazy, but it really feels like I have this underdog mentality about this team just because of the way people talk about them. They don't talk about them like they're the 4-time NBA Finals world champs. They're a 6-time world, they've gone to the finals 6 times. Like, I don't feel like that when I talk about this team because people talk down on them so much and continue to say, like, all series. I don't know if you heard this junk, that Luka Doncic is better than Steph Curry. That is the most insane thing I've ever heard. Luka Doncic is a great basketball player. You can say he's a great basketball player, but better than Steph Curry? That is insane.
No. Yeah.
Insane. And 49er, he's a chirping Celtics fan, I guess. He's saying the Celtics beat a team with the best player in the NBA, which is true. They did beat Giannis Antetokounmpo.
I'll say this though.
Go for it.
Chris Middleton not being there, like, I'm not the one to like take away from series wins if someone's not there. Like, my whole mentality is it doesn't matter who you play. That's not up to you. You have to beat whoever you play, and they did it.
Yeah.
But Giannis Antetokounmpo, it's not like you guys stopped Giannis Antetokounmpo. He was the first player ever with, 200 points, 100 rebounds, like 50 assists, something like that. Like, no one's ever done that before. He went off. Chris Middleton, he did not have a second real offensive threat, and it took 7 games to take care of him. And then, like I said, against the Miami Heat, they were so hobbled. Tyler Herro was hobbled. Jimmy Butler was hobbled. He didn't even play for a second half of a game, and it still went down to 4 points in game 7. And this is where I'm talking about the mental edge. The last, like, however many minutes it was, The Celtics only scored like 2 points or something. Why were
Yeah,
they? Why did Jimmy Butler even have a chance to come down and take a go-ahead three? Like they should have been wiping the floor with them at that point. That's something you're not going to get away with that if you're playing Golden State. If you're playing Draymond and Steph and Clay and Jordan Poole and Wiggins, it's not going to happen. And saying they swept KD and Kyrie, that's great. The Nets are also just they're not a good team.
The Nets are awful.
They were so bad. I've never seen a team really lose a trade with the same player twice. Like both times, James Harden, they lost both trades. But we could talk about like tougher roads and stuff like that. But at the end of the day,
okay, you can say that a tougher road. Here's my thing: is KD and Kyrie, like that team there's no synergy there, and I think people don't understand what Steve Kerr has done. The Warriors had this roster that has won final championships without KD with freaking Mark Jackson, and they didn't do shit. They beat every year. When you have a great head coach who knows how to manage guys and has the team chemistry that these guys have, they're a different beast. Like the Nets have no team chemistry. The coach, I don't know what's going on. You have KD and Kyrie. You should be winning more than like whatever games they're winning. And so I understand they played the Nuggets, who just are the Jokic team, and I understand like Jokic, but like that's the thing is, in some circles, Jokic was better than Giannis, and they took care of him in 5. And it's a similar thing than what's going on the Bucks. The Bucks were Giannis and nobodies. The Nuggets were Jokic and nobody. And so there's no argument there for me, at least. You can talk about the Grizzlies being without Ja Morant, but when Ja Morant's not on the court, they're a better defensive team. They're more like the Celtics. And I think that the Celtics are better than all the teams the Warriors have played. But when we talk about the teams the Warriors played to get here, they played who was put in front of them. They played the Mavs because Chris Paul didn't know how the fuck to play basketball for 2 games. Like, Chris Paul, people continue to tell me that he's one of the greatest point guards of all time, and I just don't see it. Like, he had a chance to close out Luka Doncic, and anyone who watched that series at all, I watched the first 2 games, and I was like, these Mavericks fucking stink. There's no way that they're going to even get this game to six games. And so I was like, well, they're going to get rest, and we're not, and we're going to have to play the Suns in Phoenix. And what did the Phoenix did? They fold because they have no experience. They've never been here before. They've been here one time before, and they folded against the freaking Bucks. They folded against the Mavs. The Suns are not the Warriors. That's the thing I really pissed me off more than anything. You can say you think Luka Doncic is a better player than Steph Curry because he's 3 years in, he's won all these awards, blah, 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 blah. Doesn't have a finals championship, doesn't have a finals appearance. I don't care there. But the people who continue to say, well, the Mavs beat the Suns, the Celtics beat the Heat. Like, okay, what does that have to do with anything? These guys aren't the Warriors. The Warriors are battle-tested more than any of the teams in the finals, more than any of the teams in the playoffs. No one was as battle-tested as the Warriors going into this season. And what did they do? They went to the finals, and they never even had to play a Game 7. The Celtics played 2 Game 7s. So I don't know what people are continuing to tell me that this is a team that, the Celtics. I think the Celtics are very good. Do I think they're better than the Warriors? No, I don't.
No, the Warriors were running the league until Draymond got hurt. That's my thing. It was always them and the Suns. When Draymond got hurt, that's when people got fooled into thinking this team just wasn't as good for some reason. But you got to understand that it was Clay working his way back from injury under minutes restriction and Draymond Green, who was easily the runaway defensive player of the year before the injury. Oh shit, Jesse. Oh my God.
Here.
I this is never gonna die, by the way. This is just never
honestly
gonna die.
I could see Dame being better than Kyrie. I'm not gonna lie there. I think Damian Lillard's really good. I just don't think he's better than Steph Curry.
Okay, here's my thing. Here's my thing with this. Okay. Their numbers are very similar. Okay. Kyrie was playing next to LeBron James, next to Kevin Durant and James Harden. It was on a deep team in Boston. Their numbers are very, very close. At the end of the day, they're both clutch. They both don't have they both on their own have not been able to win a championship. Kyrie has his moments too, other than Damian Lillard's first round moments. I know they're great moments, but they're first round moments. And Kyrie Irving is the greatest of all time at a fundamental of the game. He's one of the greatest finishers of all time. So just because of that, I'm going to give the edge to Kyrie. I'm not going to drink the Dame Kool-Aid. It's close. No. It's close. But I'm not taking Dame. I've seen Dame in person in these playoffs, and he was not scary to me the way that watching Kyrie was. Kyrie, I knew like nothing's going to stop this guy.
When the Warriors played the Trailblazers that year that they went to play Toronto, like didn't Portland like game 7 walk off, 3-point shoot the Nuggets, and then there was that famous picture of like him looking at the camera. That was that year, right?
Wasn't that was the Thunder game winner, right? When he shot over Paul George from like mid-court and was like, "Oh, that was a bad shot." I think that was that year.
Wasn't that? But that was the game before the Warriors game, correct?
I can't even remember.
Here's one thing about about these sports. I think people don't really talk about it enough. Like, okay, people do amazing shit in the playoffs, right? Amazing things happen in the playoffs. But the bigger the degree that those things are, the less the next series they come out like with that that kind of intensity, right? Like, you ever notice, like, think about the Vikings, right? Remember the miracle in what was it called? The miracle in something? I don't know what it was called.
Minnesota?
Was it just Minnesota? It was
so.
The guy who's on the Bills now, Diggs. Remember when he did that shit?
Yeah.
And it was a huge deal, right? And everyone's like, the Vikings are going to the Super Bowl. And what happened the following week? They got their ass blown out by Nick Foles and the Philadelphia Eagles. And it's one of those things where, like, when big things happen like that, teams don't bounce back from that stuff. They just don't. And so I never felt like the Blazers had a chance against the Warriors. And I respect the Blazers. Their fans were very nice, even though I've been to multiple playoff sweeps out because I lived in Seattle. And so I would go to Portland for game 4s because it's like, oh, fuck, they're going to sweep them. Fuck it, I'll go, because no one wants to buy tickets. No one in Portland wants to watch their team get swept. And so you buy tickets like the couple days before, watch the team sweep them. It's great. It's super fun. And for the most time, the Blazers fans are fine.
My thing is when people are trying to prop Dame Lillard up like with Steph Curry for some reason because he's like the second best in the league from shooting really far away. I have people on Twitter try to tell me he's a better deep range shooter than Steph Curry, and it's the most asinine thing I've ever seen.
I don't think there's any point guard better than Steph Curry except for Magic Johnson.
Yeah,
and I think Magic Johnson is the greatest point guard of all time. And I think that there is a chance, and we don't need to talk about this today. This is a conversation for another day. There is a chance that Steph Curry can pass Magic Johnson. Has he done it yet? No, I don't believe so. But to say anybody's better than Steph Curry right now that's not, named Magic Johnson is crazy to me. Like, I think Steph Curry passed Oscar Robertson, last year when he willed that awful team to the playoffs, even though they fucking lost to the Lakers.
Minneapolis, he should have won MVP. And this might come off as bias, but he should have won MVP because people say, oh, well, they didn't win a lot of games. Well, first of all, Russell Westbrook, it's not like he was a first seed guy when he won the MVP. This dude was average. He led the league in scoring. He averaged like 38 in the month of April. I've never seen some shit like that before. Like, you look at like 2016 Steph Curry, and it was like, holy shit, that's the greatest season of all time. Like, from a player, arguably. And he had a better year than that, and they gave it to Jokic. And I understand why they did that, but
if we're being honest, like, I remember watching the Lakers Warrior game where they were up 10, they blew the 10-point lead, and the Lakers came back and won. I think every Warrior fan kind of knew, like, hey, this team isn't going very far this year.
Yeah,
but watching that game, and then obviously the Memphis game, I don't really think it mattered because they put so much into that Laker game, and losing that game kind of killed them. But watching that game, it felt like I saw this coming. This run back to the finals. This run to run the NBA. Like, if you're looking at teams in the NBA right now, obviously this is way before free agency, way before anything. There's 2 teams, left at this point. And you're thinking about who's going to win the finals next year, whether the Warriors win it or not this year. I think the Warriors have to be the favorite to win the finals next year as well, even if they lose to the Celtics, because of the fact that they're the most complete team in the NBA. Like, the Lakers should be a more complete team, but they're fucking around doing dumb shit over there, bringing in guys that don't work with LeBron James. Like, I have no idea what they're doing. Like, the craziest thing I've ever seen is wasting LeBron James, who is probably, the second greatest athlete of his time. The fact that man is like, 34, 35, some crazy number like that, and he's still putting up double-doubles and triple-doubles. Just fucking insane shit, right? But that team doesn't give him help, right? The Warriors consistently understand how to get help for Steph Curry, where when he has a bad shooting night, someone else goes off. And that's why they continue to make deep runs into the playoffs, and they continue to win championships. I just don't see a world where there's a better team than the Golden State Warriors this year or next year right now.
And you want to know, too, like, if we want to get real about it, the real reason that people try to put them up as, like, these underdogs is, let's be real. they hurt the feelings of a lot of fans in the NBA
Oh yeah.
all those years. So now that they're in this position to win a title again, like look at national media all year. You have people saying, "Oh, their title window's done," right?
Yeah.
People are trying to talk themselves out of the possibility that the Warriors might start another run the next few years, and it's gonna be really, really painful for those. Like I would tell you, if you're on that train, just let it happen, man. It's just let it happen. Just accept that. But the thing is, for the Warriors, I actually see them getting 2 in the next 3 years. I see them getting this
Yeah.
one just because Boston's a really fun team to watch. I just don't think they're experienced enough to pull that off against the Warriors, and especially not this Warriors team, now that they're getting healthy on top of it. But I see in the next couple of years, like, if they keep most of this group together, which they can, as Kuminga gets better, as Jordan Poole gets better, as Clay is now going to be fully conditioned next year instead of having to work his way back in January, I could see this team making one more run in the next 2 years after this one to get one more ring. I can see it. And when we're talking about the Steph Curry thing, to me, for him to have a chance to even surpass Magic, he's got to get 5 rings. He's got to get 5, and he has to win at least one Finals MVP just so that people can stop saying he never won one, even though it doesn't matter. They're going to win the title this year in 6 games, and there's going to be some way that people try and some people are going to try to like make it non-legitimate. Like some people are going to be like, oh, they didn't have to play the Suns, or oh, they didn't have to play a healthy like Bucks team. They would have won if they had Chris
John Morant got hurt.
John Morant got hurt, or people are going to say,
yeah,
oh, Steph Curry, like let's say like for some reason the media decides to give Finals MVP to someone like Andrew Wiggins just for some reason because it's just what they like to do. Yeah. If that happens, people are gonna be like, oh, Steph Curry got carried by Andrew Wiggins. There's gonna be something that happens, and
could you imagine saying that sentence?
And you know, a lot of people would say it too. A lot of people would say it. I mean, people genuinely. There was this one show, and I couldn't believe it. I don't know what the name of the show was, but the clip was going around the last 2 days, and this lady was saying that Steph Curry has never been the best player on his team in any finals appearance. And that was the most asinine thing I ever heard, because literally the first one, you're going to tell me Andre Iguodala was a better player than Steph Curry the whole series? Like, this is where people start to look at the awards and they get caught up in narratives and trophies and hardware where they're not trusting what they're actually watching. And this is why when we were in the space today, people were saying Steph Curry has no signature moments. Did you watch Game 7 against OKC in 2016? I know that we talk about, like, this is my thing. It's like a double standard.
They broke the rule of 100s in that game. I think people forget, like, what happened in that game. That was the biggest Game 7 win I think I've ever seen from the Warriors.
Yes, and when I was in the building, it was just like the last handful of minutes there, you could tell the Thunder they just knew, like, no, we're not going to stop this dude. Like, you can just tell. It was just kind of, it started to become that Steph Curry show as it kept getting closer and closer to the end. And here's the thing. This is why I was saying there's a double standard with Steph Curry. With Klay Thompson, the dude honestly sometimes can like disappear for like half the finals, but he'll have like one game in the playoffs and we don't stop talking about it. Like Game 6 Klay, right?
Yeah.
But when Steph Curry has a game like he did against OKC, or some other great game, like a triple-double in Game 2 against LeBron and the Cavs in 2018, we don't talk about those games. People only talk about, oh, remember when he threw that behind-the-back pass out of bounds? Remember when LeBron blocked the shit out of him and screamed at him? Like, that's all people talk about, because it's this constant chase of, I need to just make everything Steph Curry does not legit to make myself feel better. Like, if we're going to be real, like, I've been around it too many times. Like, I've seen the conversations nonstop for years. It's tiring, but it's just something you just kind of have to grow to expect is going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And I've talked to a couple people, at my job about this, and I'd love to know your thoughts on this. Obviously, the finals haven't started, so there's only so much we could break down. But like, when you think about this team and the way they were constructed, which is literally, minus Kevin Durant, like that's exactly how you should construct a basketball team. If they pull this shit off and Steph Curry, Draymond Green, and Klay Thompson end up retiring together, and then you bring in Kuminga, Poole, and Moody, and they go on to win a championship.
And Wiseman.
Is this one? And Wiseman, right? If Wiseman ever plays. Yeah. Is this the greatest era, one of the greatest dynasties of all time? I understand we have the Showtime Lakers. I get that. I understand we have, the Larry Bird Celtics. We have Jordan's Bulls. I know all three of those are really important. But if they pull this shit off, right, and these guys go on to win a championship with these rookies that they've drafted while having 2 bad seasons. Keep in mind, they went to what? 6 straight finals? had
5.
2 bad seasons, 5 straight finals, had 2 bad seasons, and now they're back in one. And during those 2 bad seasons, they drafted, what, 3 players? Because Jordan Poole was drafted the year that they got, the year
The
they
first
lost
year
to
at
the
Chase
Raptors.
was his rookie year. So right after the
Right
Raptors
after the Toronto
finals,
Raptors. And
yeah,
then
they got
the next
Jordan
year they
Poole.
drafted Wiseman, and then the following year they drafted Moody and Kuminga. And then they didn't draft anybody this year. And so thinking about this team, the way they've done this, if they pull this off and Myers somehow does this shit again, could this be like maybe I don't know if there's ever going to be a dynasty like the Bulls. I understand that, right? Like Michael Jordan is one of one. He might be the greatest athlete of all time. He might be the greatest sports athlete of all time. And so when you think about the Showtime Lakers, who are very like Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like big names, you think about those Celtics teams. They pull this shit off again. Nobody's done this before. The Bulls you've watched The Last Dance. They were afraid to break it down and put it back and try and build it back up. They were deathly afraid of it. That's why The Last Dance exists. The Warriors didn't give a shit. They said, we're going to draft guys, put them on our bench, and they're going to be the future of our team. And obviously, this is ways off. This, Steph Curry's not going away for a couple of years. But if they pull this shit off, would you put them up there with the Bulls?
They're probably in the top 3 because
yeah,
the only other team I can think of at least most recently that made it to 6 finals in 8 years literally was the Bulls. And there were those 2 years because Michael Jordan was retired and then he came back, but it was too late. He wasn't really conditioned. Yeah. Whereas the Warriors, they went to 5 straight finals. Okay, they lost Kevin Durant. They had to figure that out. They didn't get Andrew Wiggins until the sign and trade with D'Angelo Russell. And also Steph Curry went down for practically the whole year. Would that team have won anything that year? Definitely not, just especially because Klay Thompson was gone the whole year. I mean, I think Steve Kerr and the Warriors kind of always saw that 2020 season as a gap year anyways, because they knew if Klay Thompson's not here and Kevin Durant's gone, we're not winning a title. We got to develop these young guys. We got to see what we've got. And then the year after that, 2021, last year to me was supposed to be, okay, let's see what we've got now. But then Klay Thompson went down with the Achilles on draft day. And they were forced to, I think the Kelly Oubre trade was a direct response to that. And it was kind of a panic move. Yeah. And we kind of knew once Klay Thompson went down again, like, oh shit, we're kind of in the same ride that we were at last year. Let's just hope Steph Curry can stay healthy and just see what we have in guys like Jordan Poole and whoever else we've got. And obviously we're looking into Wiseman last year. This is the first year since 2019 this team has been healthy. And even then, they haven't exactly been healthy. Like Klay Thompson didn't come back till January. Draymond missed 30 games. Steph missed the rest of the season right after Draymond came back. And they're in the finals again. So it was there were 2 gap years basically waiting on Klay Thompson to come back. And now they're right back in the finals. Like that's how quick the switch was to just get it right back to where it is. And now they have 2 cores. They have Steph, Klay, and Draymond. And then they have a young core of Jordan Poole, Moses Moody, James Wiseman when he does play, and Jonathan Kuminga, who are going to keep developing. And Andrew Wiggins is an all-star. So it's insane. That's why, like I'm saying, like if you have 4 championships between Steph, Klay, and Draymond, and Steve Kerr's been the head coach the whole time, it all happens within, 6 finals in the last 8 years. And especially, like I was saying, I think they might get 2 out of 3. If you get a 5th, you have to put it up there. I think you just have to. Because also it's not just the rings and counting, the championships, but they pioneered the way NBA basketball is played now. Trae Young does not happen without Steph Curry, the way that he is playing right now. Well, Dame Lillard, same thing to a certain extent.
You mentioned that. Have you seen there's a graphic going around? I meant to send it to you before the show, but there's a graphic going around of what an NBA defense looked like 20 years ago when Jordan played and what it looks like now. And it's drastically different because of Steph Curry, because of these Golden State Warriors. These guys changed the history of the game. They changed the way people play people. And I understand, like, yeah, you have Trae Young. These guys exist because of him, but they changed the way defenses played even.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, and they changed the way offenses play too, because other teams were like, oh, we got to get these 3-point shots up. And, obviously D'Antoni's kind of always been that mindset of we get a lot of 3-point shots up, but like, that's why. So Steph Curry, for instance, broke the record originally for threes in a year with hitting 272. Now, at some point, like 5 years from now, you're probably going to see guys routinely leading the league with like 280. And what was once the record is now going to be like, okay, we're going to be at 280 near the top of whoever's the best shooter at the time in the league. If it's not Steph Curry or Dame, I think James Harden's hit already
Doncic will
over
break
300.
it. I think Doncic will break it. I really do.
I don't know. 400 was really hard to break because like there's even times where I think Steph Curry's going to break it because he's on pace, but then like you miss a few games, you have a slump, and then all of a sudden it's like no chance. Like 400 was so ridiculous.
Doncic is 23, and like that guy can shoot a three from anywhere on the world. Like it's
someone will break it because the volume of threes is so much greater than it was. And that's why I know like 25 years from now, we're going to be sitting here as like, we're going to become the old heads. And there's going to be some guy who's like breaking these records, shooting way more threes than Steph Curry. And I know that our future kids are going to be saying like, oh, this guy's the greatest shooter of all time. We're going to be sitting there like, you fucking idiot. No, like, we're going to be sitting there like, you don't know what you're talking about. I just know it's going to happen. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest reasons I would put them up there is the influence they had on really the entire sport. And the impact they've had globally. I really want them to get their own version of The Last Dance. I really want to see that whole, and I want to see the whole era with Kevin Durant and see that whole thing unpacked too. I cannot wait for that because I know there's a thing, and you can tell because media keeps attaching Steph Curry to Kevin Durant, and I think it was pretty obvious when I'm just being in the building. Like I was always the mindset like, listen, we needed Kevin Durant for those titles because of who we were playing, and I know a lot of Warrior fans were the mindset of, oh, we didn't need him. And I think you could kind of feel that in the building a lot of times. And I really want to see an uncut, unfiltered documentary of all that shit unpacked because I know it's there. I know it exists and it existed in that locker room.
100%. Well, just like a straight up Last Dance thing. And I think that you can thank the Last Dance because, now we have I Am Magic on Apple Plus or Apple, whatever. Is it Apple Plus? It's called
Apple TV.
Plus. Apple TV, one of those fucking streaming things.
Yeah.
And then you have the Black Mamba coming out here,
can't wait for that.
on Netflix in August. You have these documentaries about famous basketball teams. If they're not making something about the Showtime Lakers that's like a documentary, because I don't know if you've watched Showtime on HBO Max.
Winning Time. I've watched.
My girlfriend calls it Showtime, so now I'm calling it Showtime.
Same damn thing. But like, I'm like three. I need to just finish it. But it is really
so good.
It's really
good. And it's like a dramatized thing. But I think that people are starting to realize that these dynasties that happened in the NBA, because while there were football dynasties, right? Like there's been football dynasties, the Niners, the Patriots. It's not as interesting as what goes on in NBA locker room and what goes on with these guys who have these huge egos. And I think that people are starting to realize that the best sports documentaries are basketball. Like I love the NFL, but that Tom Brady documentary, I've never ever watched it, Chris. It's fucking boring. Like it's so boring.
I saw first few episodes. I'm like, there's interesting parts, but like I was sitting there like I can't sit there and watch this whole thing the way I watched The Last Dance. And I think I think basketball.
The Last Dance was addicting.
It was addicting. I still watch it sometimes. Like I think with basketball, the reason for that, and it's totally true, is because you can get so freaking close to the game and these players, like you can literally sit fucking courtside. Like LeBron James might fall on your lap after taking a layup. And like with football, they have helmets on, they have visors. There's 53 of them. There's a ton of guys on the sidelines. Like casual people are not going to know like more than 10 of those names. Like it's kind of hard to really feel that connection with them. It's harder to market their faces, whereas basketball, they're right there. And you can be right up close to them in the middle of the game. So you feel closer to that. There's also less people, so it's easier to follow along with it. There's like 15 guys on the bench. So yeah, no, I can't wait for the Warriors to get their own version of that.
It's like you compare it to like baseball. Like Mike Trout is the greatest, going to be one of the greatest baseball players in the history of baseball. Would you watch a documentary on him? No. He's the most boring dude on the planet.
Don't care.
The dude's gonna be better than Roger Clemens. He's gonna be better than fucking Babe Ruth when it's all said and done. Like the guy is fucking insane, but I don't give a shit about anything about him outside of his skill at baseball. Like Michael Jordan is just so interesting. Like the guy literally said, Republicans buy shoes too. Like white supremacists buy shoes too. Like imagine like a black dude say that's crazy.
There's no way.
And Jordan was just one of a kind. The dude knew how to market himself, and he was so talented. He didn't give a fuck. And it's crazy when you watch that documentary. You're like, no, this man was an asshole, and he did not care.
Yeah. No,
and it's curious. Like, Go for it. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like with these things, like I can't wait for LeBron to get a documentary too. Like
Yeah,
that's gonna be a
no,
big one.
that's exactly what I was saying. I was like,
Yeah.
LeBron, this Kobe one will be interesting because like there's stuff about Kobe that's not really talked about a lot. And I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but like there's a reason that he changed his number, and I'm curious if the documentary will get into that and talk a little bit about that because that's kind of a wild thing. Like how many times, did Joe Montana, like did anything happen with an NFL player and they changed their number to get away from it, and then they retired both numbers?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's just crazy. A lot of that stuff is wild, and I think that basketball is so infamous for that stuff, and I think that's why these documentaries work better than any other sport.
Yeah, no, for sure. And look at the impact that people like Steph Curry have had globally.
Yeah,
Like you just look at that in general, like how connected people get, and it's also a very global game. Like football is really not global.
Yeah.
So what? We're gonna play in Mexico City. Like okay, like Steph Curry goes to China on tours and Clay, like China Clay, like LeBron. Like it's very global.
They
Like a
play
lot
in
of
the
these
Olympics.
stars. Yeah, they play in the Olympics.
They play basketball in the Olympics.
You got NBA players like Luka Doncic still trying to backpack like his country and stuff like that. Like it's a lot more. It's easier to connect in that way. And that's why like when we get to the finals, I think that it is kind of a crazy story because you have the Warriors who are in the midst of still this dynasty. I want to say they're still in it just because they're title contenders for the next few years, not just this year. They're playing a team that's right up there with the Lakers with the most championships, trying to start their own thing. And it's just, I know Laker fans are in shambles right now because they know that they need Steph Curry to win a championship, or they need the Celtics to win a championship. Like either way, like it's just inevitable for them. But you just see like these eras of teams where the Celtics have a huge history. The Warriors' history was really just like being really shitty. And it's crazy because both these
Celtics
teams,
the Clippers every year. Clippers.
And both these teams, what I love about this final series, they were both built. They were both drafted. Like that's what I really love is you look at all the moves that were made this offseason. Laker fans really excited that they formed an all-NBA team from 2013. Or if you look at the Brooklyn Nets losing a James Harden trade twice, Ben Simmons showing up to like the whole Ben Simmons thing. You got, like the Bulls formed like a cool team too. Like it was entertaining pieces, not really championship pieces, but entertaining pieces nonetheless. But it's like none of that mattered. The two teams that drafted well the last handful of years, both those teams are in here. And that's what I really love is you get to see two built teams that will still be contending for the next few years.
Can you believe Kemba Walker was on the Boston Celtics?
Oh my God.
Do you remember that? Like Kemba Walker was on this team. That's wild.
They had Kyrie and then they lost Kyrie and they're like, well, shit, let's just get another guy who can like be a little bit worse. And he was far from a little bit worse. He was way worse.
But then they figured it out. They realized that they just use their own guys and they'll be fine. So it's interesting. I think that, obviously this series will be the hardest battle the Warriors have fought this year, I think. But I think that people are talking a lot about how Marcus Smart has been like, the Steph Curry killer throughout his career.
There's a Steph Curry killer every year, according to everybody.
Yeah. But like, it'll be interesting to see how Steph, plays in the finals, where people believe that, people have this notion, that's why our whole conversation got, off track here. It was people have this notion that Steph Curry isn't clutch. And so for him to shut up all of his doubters and win MVP against Marcus Smart, the defensive player of the year, if you want to talk shit about Steph Curry after that, DM me. I'd love to hear it because that'd be the most wild shit I've ever heard in my entire life.
Yeah, and that's where people like I want to remind people that when we look at the finals against the Raptors, right? He was averaging 30 in that series. Like I think it was like 30 and then 6 assists and like maybe 5 rebounds, something around there. It was like 36 and 5. He was on track to win Finals MVP there if they were able to pull off a couple more wins. And I think that was his best. It was definitely his best final series. And he was actually banged up too. Like his shooting hand was completely swollen. Yeah. It was disgusting. If you go look up, even when he had the game 6 against Houston, it was just disgusting. And I think for him to be able to now pick up back on that that's like I really do see him taking it to another level. That's why for me, so all year my finals prediction once the season started to get going, I was like, okay, it's going to be Golden State and it's going to be Milwaukee, just because Giannis is Giannis, and I knew like if Middleton's there and Drew Holiday's there and they're healthy enough, they can get out of the East. And the thing is, for me, I was more worried about Milwaukee, not just because of Giannis, but Drew Holiday is a guy who legitimately has consistently done pretty well against Steph Curry. I mean, even Andre Iguodala, his own teammate, has said like Drew Holiday's the best guy guarding him. So I thought like, shit, they had to go up against Giannis, the one guy that they just really can't stop in this league. Like I don't care what they try to do with him. And Drew Holiday, who historically is just pretty good at guarding Steph Curry. I was more worried about that than the Celtics. The Celtics, to me, if you can contain Jason Tatum, or even let's say Jason Tatum gets his numbers and he goes off, contain Jaylen Brown, and you're probably fine. That's like what? Is Marcus Smart going to keep chucking up 3-pointers? I hope Marcus Smart keeps chucking up 3-pointers. Like we want, the Warriors are going to want him to do that. Like you see, like Ja Morant in the Grizzlies series, and even though it was kind of annoying me because sometimes he was making it, no one was even going near him. They're letting him walk into these open gym 3-pointers. Like they're going to play percentages, and I don't know if the Celtics are smart enough to really avoid that.
Do it, and Doncic would make it more than not. You know, they don't care. That's who they
and
are.
They still overcome it. Yeah,
Yeah,
like that's why with the Cavs, people were like, obviously LeBron played. Granted, I don't want to take anything away from it, but I think they were really okay with LeBron getting the 40 points. What the problem was you can't let Kyrie Irving go off for 41 points next to him. Like that was the issue.
Yeah.
It was never like one guy going off. If Jason Tatum has the series of his life, first of all, I think he's going to have the series of his life to win this series, to have a chance. Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, like Grant Williams, Robert Williams, like that's what it's going to come down to. And I think that they can definitely handle that supporting cast. I've seen them handle tougher scenarios than that in the finals, because we can talk about how deep the team is too, but the deeper you get in the playoffs, your rotation is going to shrink. So it's going to be a lot more of those experienced guys. And Andrew Wiggins has been a very solid two-way player. I mean, he did so, I know Luka went off, but when he was guarding Luka, he did so well.
People talked a lot of shit about him all season, and he's really shut those haters up. He's been really good. I think Andrew Wiggins has really shown that he's a good basketball player.
And that's why that's why it just doesn't make sense. It's so inconsistent, because you have people saying like Andrew Wiggins sucks. He's a bum. And then if you get to the playoffs, like now people are going to say like, oh, well, look at the supporting cast Steph Curry had. Like that's where it just doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it's all of it's dumb. Say what's up to CG Ruthless Sports. What's up, man? But let's real quick before we close out for the night. I just want to ask you. So same time next week. Hopefully, if you have time, we'll get you back on. We'll have a kind of more people. We'll talk about where we are. But where do you think the Warriors are going to be next Tuesday?
Next Tuesday.
Where do you think? There are 2 games between now and then. Where do you think that you have them? I'm going to say 1-1. I think they're going to win one at home and they're going to lose one at home. I just think the Celtics are just different.
Celtics are really good, but I'm going to be honest. I think game 1 will be harder than game 2, because I think
they're going to come out in game 1 and kill them, personally.
Because like the thing is, when you have that much layover compared to the other team, like that's where there's the whole rhythm versus rest thing.
Yeah.
I think that they might start out a little slower than Boston, because Boston is going to, they've never been here before. They're going to have all the adrenaline in the world. They're going to play like with their heads like dangling. Like they're just going to be going full throttle, whereas the Warriors, their core is going to be more calm, but also having that week off, and the fact that, Steph Curry, Clay, they're shooters, they might have a bit of a slower start, and the physicality and athleticism might be like a first quarter where we're sitting there like, what the fuck? Like it might be one of those first quarters again, but I think they'll figure it out. And then I think game 2, it's like, okay, the series is settled in. They'll be fine. I think they'll be up 2-0.
Oh, okay.
I think they'll be up 2-0, because while I mentioned that it is also the very first time this Celtics team is jumping into the finals, but they're definitely going to lose 1 at Boston, because Boston is one of the it's a very tough environment to win in. Like every time we go to Boston, I always get worried about playing there. I'm not going to lie.
You should really finish winning time, because when they kind of talk about that, even the Showtime Lakers, when they played at Boston, how creepy it was.
Oh yeah. I've heard the stories. I've definitely heard the stories. But yeah, I think it'll be 2-0. I think that they'll lose a game at Boston. I think it goes 6 games, because to me, I think there's going to be a game where the Celtics just outplay the Warriors for sure. there's going to be another game where not only are the Celtics playing good, but I think the Warriors might throw it away a little bit. There's going to be like one of those clunkers that they have where they lose by like 16 points because they have too many turnovers. But I can't see, like the same way I never saw the Phoenix Suns, who were a very sound basketball team, like even the Suns would give this Celtics team a pretty good run. Like, I'm not going to lie. Like, I'm watching the Suns a lot this year. They would have given the Celtics a pretty good run. But I never saw that Suns team winning against Golden State 4 times in a span of 7 games. So I don't see the Celtics winning 4 times in a span of 7 games. Like, are they going to win 2 games? Like, I think they will absolutely win like 2 games. Game 7 to me would be a stretch. I don't know if I see the Warriors losing 3 games to this same inexperienced team in that close of a span. For me, I like to have a respectable fear, as Greg Popovich likes to put it, when it comes to the opponents. Like, believe me, I don't think Boston's a bad team at all. I'm not trying to say like they don't have a chance. I think in the finals, you never really know what's going to happen. I'm just saying I've seen this way too many times with the Warriors, and it's always the same result unless something happens where like Kevin Durant just like pops his Achilles or Klay Thompson. Like even in that Raptors series, I was sitting there at game 6. I was there at Oracle, and I was like, because Klay I think had 30. Or like close to 30. And I was like, holy shit, I think we're going to win this game. And I think that their experience is going to win them game 7, even without Kevin Durant. And then Klay Thompson tore his ACL. And I was like, all right, that ship sailed.
That was done as soon as he got hurt. Yeah.
But I was sitting there like that's the feeling you get. Like I tell people this all the time too. So I was in high school when we were playing the Thunder in the conference finals, they were down 3-1. I go to school and my buddy's like giving me shit for it. But I just knew the whole time, I was like, this team's not going to lose like that. And I make him a bet. I was sitting in a math class with him. I make him a bet. And I was like, I'll bet you the Warriors win the title. I'll give you $100 if they lose at any point in the playoffs. And they were down 3-1 at this point. And I was like, but if they win the title, you give me $10. Now they ended up losing, but they got through that series. And that's why, like, I've seen it too many times. Like, I just kind of have like this feeling like with this team. And it's kind of like in 2015 even. Remember, whenever they lost 2 games in a row, they went on a win streak. Like, that was the thing. Like, they never lost 3 games straight that entire year. Like, that's just the way this team is. And being as dominant as they were before the injury to Draymond, and Klay wasn't even there, with everyone here now in this series, and the fact that Steph, Klay, and Draymond already have that chemistry, Jordan Poole, that's the silver lining. He got to play a lot when Klay Thompson was gone, so he got to develop really quick. Andrew Wiggins being that supporting cast member as well, things are just made a lot easier for him. He can use a lot of energy on defense. I don't see a Celtics team just by like a pecking order of like 2 or 3 players beating this group 4 times. That's where I just don't see that. I don't think that's enough.
No, I don't think the Celtics are going to win this series. I think the Warriors are going to win it, but I think that it'll be an interesting series. It'll get weird to start. I think they're going to lose a home game. I think they have to lose a home game. If they win every home game,
I think they'll lose one home game. What I have, and I could be, I have them going up 2-0, and then I have them losing game 3, and then I have them winning game 4, but then I actually have them losing game 5.
And then
I have them, and then I have them winning it in Boston. That's how I see it.
I have Warriors in 7 personally, so we'll see what happens. It'll be really interesting. Chris, we're all out of time. I appreciate you coming on. It's been super fun to talk about something that isn't the 49ers for once. I mean,
it's not Jimmy, it's not Debo, it's not arm fitness of Trey Lance or former NFL scouts or supposedly.
We don't talk about that man. We don't talk about that man here. We don't talk about him on this podcast. But Chris, I appreciate it. How can they find you if they want to check out your stuff and follow you on Twitter and such?
Yeah, so my display name right here, Chris Polo _, is my Twitter. So if you go there, you'll be able to find my link tree right in my bio. So my YouTube channel is The Polo Show. You can type it in or you can just find it on the link tree. I'm also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Amazon Music. So if you want to just get the audios, you can follow me there. But definitely subscribe to the channel. Also, because once I get like 17 more subscribers, I'm going to do a Nick Bosa jersey giveaway. So you might as well just throw yourself in that hat. Might as well just hit a button, and then you might get a Nick Bosa jersey. That's kind of a fair trade if you ask me. So yeah, that's how you can find me. Just go to my Twitter, and I'm pretty active on there. I'm also really active in spaces and stuff like that, and always debating Jesse about Dame and Kyrie like all the time, and kind of just trolling people a little bit. But that's how you're gonna find me.
Just got to read a book from the book of Jimmy Garoppolo.
The book of turnover.
The book of turnover, my bad. I created it too. It's funny, I forgot. You can follow me at Niner849. Make sure you subscribe to the channel because it's not 17 more that we're going to give a jersey away, but we are going to give a jersey away at some point. We hit 1,000. I think we hit 200 recently. So 800 more. If you want to get 800 of your friends, hit that subscribe button. We can do that. Make sure you subscribe to Chris's channel. I really appreciate him coming on. Next week, I think I'm going to try and plan for a round table. We're going to bring a little bit more people on here, talk about the series so far, talk about where it's going. Hey, and if the series is still going, we'll probably do 3 weeks of this just because there's no Niner news. I don't want to force podcasts just to have podcasts. I want to talk about stuff that's interesting to talk about, stuff that people want to interact with. So this will be the format till we probably get to training camp where we'll talk about the Giants and how mad I am at Farhan. But right now, I guess they won tonight. So we'll stick with Warriors, Niners, and maybe eventually we'll go Bay Area on the show. We'll figure it all out as we go along. But appreciate you all for coming in. Appreciate you all for sticking with me through the hard times, sticking with me through everything. I appreciate you all. You're all amazing. And, one more thing. The hype train never stops, baby!